Hi, I'm Wes Crawford. I freelance in performance and recording in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. Teach drum lessons at Goucher College and privately. And I tour and record with Shaheen and Sapir on Higher Octave Narada label. And additionally, I toured for 11 years with a jazz R&B singer-entertainer named Jane L. Powell. Anyway, today we're going to talk about changing a drum head. We work on learning the drum so often and so hard that a lot of times we neglect things like taking care of our instrument. And the first thing you need to do is change your drum heads every once in a while. As you can see, this head has had better days. It's a little bit pitted and has a lot of marks on it from being hit. It's a very good head and still does not sound bad, but every once in a while we do need to change our heads, even if they're not played upon, just because from stretching for so long they'll lose a little bit of their life. So we're going to start off with taking the old head off. I reach into my pocket and pull out a drum key. The drum key probably came with your set, and most of them look very similar to this, although there's some pretty fancy ones out there now. I always keep one in my pocket with my keys. Doesn't take up a lot of room, and as a working, gigging, practicing, jamming drummer, you're always going to need a drum key at some point. First thing we do, it lays very nicely over the lug screws here on the drum, and we'll just loosen them. And what I'm doing, even though this isn't as important when we take the head off, but what I'm doing is actually loosening crossways. So we're loosening the head evenly. If for some reason you were going to put this head back on, this can help keep it in shape better. At this point, we have all of the lugs loosened so that we can finger loosen them. We can just put our finger around the edge and more quickly get them to the point where they leave the receptacle. Doesn't matter what order we do this in at this point. And as you can see, we can just lift the rim right off. Don't bother taking all of these lug screws out. And notice there's usually, if it's a decent drum, it has a little washer. You don't want to lose these. All you need to do is set it down somewhere. And I rest it on the floor so that it won't get lost. The other pieces won't fall out. And we just lift the drum head right off. We can discard it. Some people like to make O-rings out of these to muffle the drum, and all you need to do is just cut a donut shape, maybe about an inch or less wide, and cut it out of this material. It's basically the same material that you would pay up to $10 for these little rings, and you can lay them on your snare drum to muffle later. It's just a good little recycling tip. Dirt and lint can collect across the bearing edge, and this can actually affect the sound, so this is important. Another thing you might want to do, if it's been a while, lift your drum up and carefully shake it. Make sure there's no dirt or lint inside. We'll put it back on the basket or the cradle from the snare drum stand and take our rag wipe off the rim, the metal rim. This area between the lug screws can get dirty. It's just a good chance to clean places on your drum that could get dirty and you don't get a chance to do very often. And that's the basic process for taking off the snare drum head. Works equally with the toms. The bass drum is going to work very similarly usually, but they might have T handles, T rods to actually unscrew. It's almost like having a drum key already attached to the lug screw, and they'll look more like that. Or you might have lug screws that look just like this on your bass drum. But the same principles apply.